Tricia Parido is a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, speaker, and writer. She's a nationally certified life coach, an international master addiction specialist, and a professional life interventionist with a psych degree in process behavioral and chemical addiction who loves to help change lives. As a Master Life Interventionist, Trisha is ever committed to serving her clients worldwide to find the emotional intelligence they need to conquer their life challenges. Hear what Trisha has to say.
And we have to know how to get into that intuitive mind state instead of running hot over here in our emotional mind or, getting super rigid in our logic rational space, right? We need to get into that wise mind where everything gets to come together. I've experienced more sexual assaults than I care to admit. Doesn't matter. 5, we'll go with that, right? And so I've learned to pull out what those lessons are. Number one lesson for me didn't have anything to do with me. I was just a vehicle for somebody else's bad act. It's not my bad experience to carry around. I had no part in it, right? Or just the vehicle. If it hadn't have been me, it would have been somebody else.
Put your seatbelts on and dive in for this wild ride, y'all. Hello, my beautiful people out there, and welcome back to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. I'm your host, Devanin. I have with me a lovely lady by the name of Tricia Parido today, and we're going to be helping some of you hurting souls out there. Some of you have been broken, dismissed, discarded, wounded in ways that you don't yet know how you're going to get fixed. We're going to do what we can to spit some knowledge into your life, to spit some peace and some kindness into your soul. Maybe this will be the first time you've ever heard such things. I encourage you to open your mind and listen to what the Spirit is saying through us and what we have to say to you in so much love. We bring it to you in love and in humility. We don't know everything, but we do know that transparency changes things and it helps people. And we are going to tell it all. Girl, how are you doing today? I can
I'm getting energized. Today was one of my least favorite days, or it started out as one of my least favorite days. But man, have I mastered turning that around in short periods of time. So it's all good. And I'm just loving being here with you and your beautiful energy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Same back to you, my beautiful woman in the light. So before I read your introduction, go ahead. Let me just latch on to what you just said right now. So you said you were able to turn that around. Talk to us about what you did and how you were able to do it.
Well, and I know everybody can relate to this, right? Like you wake up in the morning and you just do not feel connected with any piece of your surroundings. Like I think my entire first hour and a half, like there was just no connection with anything. I wasn't I wasn't able to just even latch on to any. I didn't even, gosh, for goodness sake, I didn't even send my husband a good morning message today, which totally abnormal for me. And I sat down to see everything that was on my calendar for today. And it was just like, I couldn't connect with any of it. And my writing that I usually do in the morning just wasn't there. There was just no words. I just didn't feel connected with my soul. So, the first thing that I always do is, I sit in that and I kind of look at, I do some reflection to see, what might be lending to that. And then also I look forward and I make things small. So that, it's just, one thing at a time, one thing in the moment. And then of course, I do my spiritual practice, every morning. So, once that is done, it's just really a beautiful space. So I was able to identify, yesterday, um, I didn't drink my shake that keeps giving me mental clarity. Like I just skipped it yesterday. Anyway, so that piece, so the nutrition piece was lacking yesterday. And then I sat down and I wrote myself a list of all of the things that I had accomplished because I was feeling kind of like that. Why isn't this Saturday feeling, right? Like, well, I'm tired. And so I just kind of gave myself a lot of acknowledgments for all of the big, beautiful things that I was able to get completed this week. Because I think a lot of times we just get into autopilot and we do, but we don't, stop to like, give ourselves a pat on the back to acknowledge it. And so we are only focused on what's ahead. So we just never feel done or complete or completed or successful or anyway, I could ramble on forever. So I spent some beautiful, wonderful time with myself, did my spiritual, you know, regimen that I do in the morning and then, just kind of regrouped and, sat here in a state of meditation until it was time to chat with you.
So what that is conscious living, y'all. It's like she woke up with a certain emotion or a certain way, and she did not just accept that as like it has to be the standard for the day. Why do you think what you think, y'all? Is how I always encourage people to challenge themselves. Why do you feel what you feel? You don't have to accept sadness. You don't have to accept all of these wonky spirits, energies, emotions, whatever you want to call them, that want to come and possess you and oppress you and make you have like a fucked up day, life, existence. You can be like, you can do what she just said and be like, not today, Satan. You know,
100%. Right? Like we could go through the day and continue to attach that to everything that comes next. We could attach it to it. We could carry it around in this bag of whatever, all of our yesterdays, whatever it is. Right? And we could attach it to all the things that come next, or we could leave it in the space that it arrived in, bless it, thank it for its message and leave it there and move on.
and with that, let me go right on ahead and break out this impressive, I'll just say, resume of hers, y'all. Tricia is a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, speaker, and writer. She is a nationally certified life coach. I'm gonna pause there. There's a lot of coaches running around here, and I'm not saying, some are great, some are terrible, whatever the fuck, but they're not all certified. Uh, that stands out because everybody on YouTube and on TikTok and on social media is a coach, but not everybody's bothered to get a certification in anything. Continuing, an international master addiction specialist. That's some shit I've never heard of. And but I love it. I love all of it. And a professional life interventionist with a psych degree in process behavioral and chemical, or as I like to say, chemical addiction, who loves to help change lives. As a master life interventionist, Trish is ever committed to serving her clients worldwide to find the emotional intelligence they need to conquer their life challenges. Hmm. Emotions and intelligence. Yeah. Yeah. Intelligent emotions is important to have. I love that. As an active business owner of a thriving coaching practice, Turning Leaves Recovery Life and Wellness Coaching, that's the name of the business, with courses seeding in evidence-based practices, she not only teaches her clients how to live the life they desire, how to evolve. God, I'm gonna say that again. How to evolve and live free. But she also teaches those that aspire to become professional coaches how to do so passionately and professionally. Talk to me about emotional intelligence and
Mm,
what is the reverse of that?
okay. So, ooh, you just entered my world. Right? So,
Hey,
the emotional intelligence is something that people, especially, all those folks out there, calling themselves coaches without getting the credentials. And thank you so much for acknowledging that. I'm so passionate about the professionalism of the industry. I have 15 credentials in the coaching modality because if I'm going to coach somebody in a specific area of their life, I better be trained, right? I better know the right way to do it, right? Like this is people's life. Anyway, I digress. Emotional intelligence is something that a lot of people think that is an innate talent, and it's not. Just because you like your life and it feels good to you doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence. So if we think about this, and we can go back to my story this morning, I had options, right? And options to sit and start my day right, however long it took me to get into the right space, the right, the right into the intuitive space. the space filled with the right integrity, morals, ethics, whatever it was I needed to lead with today, right? To show up right based on my assessment. I had that choice, which is what I did, or I could have, white knuckled it, said, "Oh, I'm just having a bad day." I could have attached it to everything else. So what this looks like is, you get up, nothing feels right. You're irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, bothered. You can't pinpoint it. The kids aren't getting ready for school right. You're yelling at them. The other moms are, blocking the drop off. And then somebody cuts you off, and all of these things are attaching. You get to the office, you're talking about it at the coffee station, and negative Nancy, this, that, and the other thing. All of that energy gets attached to every communication you have with every person, and everything's just wrong. What's wrong with the universe today? Why is everybody so crazy? Why is, and it just attaches. And we could go into a super deep clinical conversation about it. But the issue is, we tend to drag all of our moments that have already come and gone along with us throughout the day, make this big, humongous, it's like, when you're making a snowman, right? Like you make a little tiny ball and then you roll it around the grassy field and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like this is overwhelm. Overwhelm gets created just like that giant snowman's, you know, snowball. And, or, the avalanche that comes down and it's really noisy. And then there's a big whiteout where your brain just completely blanks out afterwards. And then, so by the time you get to the end of the night, you're like telling your husband, no matter how he breathes or whatever, like you're annoyed with him. And, you're telling him all about all of the crazy, dumb things that everybody did or said to you. And there's no emotional intelligence going on there. Because really all we have to do is say, right, like right here, right now, in this moment, I feel, and know how to effectively describe our emotions. We don't know how to use the right adjective, right? Like we just walk around saying we're fine. We are the most ambiguous being on the planet, right? Like fine is, could be anything from an overly bleached strand of hair that would break and, if you touched it, or it could be like the most amazing fine stone from the center of the earth, right? Like fine is, broad. So, we tend to broad brush our life. We tend to, you know, make things bigger than they need to be. And we make these big lumps. So if we can identify what we're feeling in the moment, right? Name it accordingly, and then ask ourselves what's driving it in this time and space, right here, right now, in this moment. What's driving it? And how much of it is for me? How much is about me? How much is about or for something outside of me? The locus of control theory is so much bigger than most people even know. And you may not know what that is, but it's in addiction. We rely on, right, our substance of choice, whether that's food, alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, whatever, people pleasing, codependency, or relying on something, someone, a person, place, thing, right? We're relying on it to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, and worthiness. So if we want to be in this space of emotional intelligence, we have to know how to get connected with ourselves in a split second, right? Like right now. Then we have to know how to face the distress, right? So how to come up with responses instead of reactions. And we have to know how to get into that intuitive mind state instead of running hot over here in our emotional mind, or, getting super rigid in our logic rational space, right? We need to get into that wise mind where everything gets to come together, and we just know intuitively what's right in that space. And if that means you gotta sit down, kick your feet up for 3 hours until you can regroup, then that's what you do. But, emotional intelligence, comes with a lot of things that we need to know. We have to have distress tolerances, which means we have to, know how to, we need effective self-soothing tactics. We need to know how to cognitively shift, restructure, reframe whatever it is that's going on. instead of just saying, I'm not going to let that bother me, shove it down, push it aside, sweep it under the rug, whatever. Like that's not effective. Numbing out is not effective. Taking a look at it, breaking it down and learning, right, what I need to do to reduce my vulnerability in this time and space effectively is the right approach. So when you want emotional intelligence, it means that you can do do what works and be effective in no matter what's going on inside your head, your heart, etc. On it.
Mm,
It's a big process.
okay, I'm here for the process. Give me an example of a client that you worked with that really stood out, that you had exceptional results with there before, what you did with them and thereafter.
Oh, all of them. Um, hmm. I'm going to talk about clients that came to me heavy alcohol use or heavy alcohol dependence, um, body dysmorphic disorder, so BDD from here on out, uh, and mm, dual eating disorders, right? Like highly restrictive yet binge eating, right? And and her whole life, right? Like everything and everybody in her life, based on her ability to receive their words, right? Like how she heard, how she saw, how she perceived other people, their messages, their motives, their affection, etc., was all seated in past trauma, which means that across her life, as we went on this journey, we were able to, like you have to really get down to like why and where did it come from, right? Um, so there were a ton of messages in there embedded in her brain from past traumas, right? Parental words, parental assessments of things, right? Like hearing a parent's judgment or view of something outside there in the world, and visually she saw a certain way and then connected it to herself, and then it became like something she adopted, right? So that like the definition of fat and the definition of how you get fat and was where it started, right? Like dad's assessment of what a fat woman was when she was a child. She was like, "Oh, but that doesn't seem fat to me," right? Like, so I have to take this image of this woman and make it my definition of fat. And then as she grew and matured and got to what she assessed as close to that visual that she embedded in her brain as a child, she then became fat. And then in all of that, in her own mind. And so that was adoption number one. Um, relationship assault, sexual assault was a piece, and the disregard and the negative words again about body image, right? Started embedding and kept bringing dad's message, right? Dad's views, dad's opinions with her along the way. And then, discovered numbing out with alcohol and food and eating your emotions and whatnot. So when we started incorporating the 31 lessons that build and create emotional intelligence in my signature service that has been producing huge results for 10 years, in that work, we were able to get her into a space of loving herself, confidence, no longer in an active alcohol use disorder, and in a totally different relationship with food. Right? That doesn't mean that that was the end of our journey. That was in a space where we got her out of highly destructive behavior and into a space where she could actually grow from the spot that she was in going forward. From there, we went into, loving her physical body at higher levels. And that, was, clearing some, other deeper messages that she had created cognitively and allowing her to be on forward moving momentum, releasing all of them, right? Like looking at anything that could serve her, any lessons that would serve her going forward. She would put on her metaphoric shelf, but the rest of it went in the trash can because key is to get rid of the luggage, right? The luggage is what holds you back. It's what keeps you ruminating, wallowing, and languishing in things that have already come and gone or that you have already survived. Right. I like to say any day I wake up without a chocolate around my body is a great day. Anything that happened beforehand doesn't matter. When somebody has a slip or what y'all might call relapse, I'm always there to greet them with, doesn't matter what happened yesterday. What matters is what you choose to do today going forward. Even if they call me right after they take their first break or I just had a drink, right? Like, great, okay, whatever. Like, dump the rest and move forward. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do in this moment going forward. Because we punish ourselves and we judge ourselves far too much in the past. Our evidence of when we have anxiety, fear, generally comes from past experience. When we effectively know how to pull out the lesson that will serve us, right? I have a creep dar. I've experienced more sexual assaults than I care to admit. Doesn't matter. 5, we'll go with that, right? And so I've learned to pull out what those lessons are. Number one lesson for me didn't have anything to do with me. I was just a vehicle for somebody else's bad act. It's not my bad experience to carry around. I am not, had no part in it, right? I was just the vehicle. If it hadn't have been me, it would have been somebody else. Sure, I had to do a lot of healing, but today, like I can talk about it and it doesn't affect me in a negative way because I completely remove all of the fear, the anxiety, the shame, the guilt, I don't know, looking for a reason to blame myself, whatever. So anyway, with that client, we went through a series of those kinds of things, right? Like really getting in there. Where did it come from? Where does it belong? So that we could be in the present moment and not assess every single movement going forward based on or comparing to or pulling from some past thing that didn't serve me to begin with.
That's pretty fucking fantastic. So clap, clap, clappity, clap, clap, clap.
Like, I don't know. Like I could go down a rabbit hole and then just, disappear in it.
So So basically, since you've experienced deliverance, very strong deliverances from very intense traumas, and she just touched on some of them. In her history, she has her own chemical substance abuse, eating disorders and trauma, and her own body dysmorphia. So she has abandonment issues and things that I was, reading about. There is
Mhm.
something kind of special about somebody who's been through some shit that enables you, gives you the power to to go and help somebody else. The difference is somebody who's never been addicted to drugs going to school to learn how to be a counselor versus somebody who has been addicted to drugs. You know, it's a different language that's spoken out there on them streets, y'all. And to say that's not to say that somebody who has not been addicted to drugs can't help, that it's a certain special touch that you have when you have been through something, and that's just the way it is. So on this body dysmorphia thing, I'd like you to speak specifically to men and those who identify as male, because in my clothing line, for instance, for Down Under Apparel, I deal with a lot of models. Um, I used to be a model, so I'm accustomed to being around very what a lot of people might call physically attractive men. So these men are tall, very muscular, 6 packs, 8 packs, 9 packs, bubble butts, very physically attractive men. Pretty much all of them don't think they look good enough when they show up to the set, in things like that. That's not to say that they're like, and this is just what they reveal to me. It's like it's just little things they say, and they're so critical, of their body. They're constantly nitpicking at it, and things like that. Is there anything that you could say to males, I mean, those who identify with the masculine energy out there to just help them to accept themselves?
Yeah. And I love that you bring this into this space because, one of 1 in 10 people that struggle with eating disorder, regardless of which one, right, are men. And it's something that isn't, really talked about or, brought around, right? There's a high prevalence of, of, of eating disorders and body image and dysmorphia in the male population. And the thing is they just don't talk about it the same way as women do, right? But what I'm hearing you say is that, you know what? Amongst men, we do. Yeah, we're just not out there talking about it, maybe. But, when we have a, a dysmorphic disorder, right? Like that fixation on one part of our body, right? Whether it's our abs, our arms, our legs, multiple areas, when they're just never good enough, and we're always trying to enhance, etc. One, we have to take a look at our relationship in the mirror, but and change that, right? Like I have a very strange relationship with the mirror in that I don't really spend a lot of time using it. Um, you know, so, you know, you have to know why. You have to know why you are so hyper fixated on whatever your thing is, right? If you have to be in the gym 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, and you're still not feeling successful enough, like we got to have a conversation about that, right? We got to have a conversation about how to heal that relationship with the physical body and why, right? It doesn't look the way that you want it to look. And it's really hard to speak in generalities because I'm going to tell you something. Eating disorders and body image issues are very unique and special to each individual being. And although there is diagnostic criteria around how to give them a label, um, it doesn't matter. Like it's all very unique. Of where does it stem from? Like my clients, right? Like, um, and all of the messages, from external sources. Mine wasn't ever that, right? Like mine came from a completely different place. Perfectionism, right? Perfectionism was a big, big thing for me in my life. And so men, same thing. Wrestlers, right? We got to drop weight. We got to stay thin. We got to, whatever, right? Same for, whatever football position. You either got to bulk up or you got to lean down. And so there's, a lot of that. And so we get into this cycle in early ages. And so now we've got adolescents hyper focused on their body size, right? Men. So then you've got this freshman joining the high school football team, not really sure even what, like position they're going to play. And they're totally in their adolescent body, like string bean or whatever they are. And they're looking at these seniors who are men, right? Like you got, 14-year-old and you got 17, 18-year-old, like men get ready to go off to college and they're comparing themselves and they're vying for a place on the team. And it messes with your head. But also, you have self-esteem, right? So if you feel like you're soft or squishy in an area and you've had a problem with it and you're hyper focused on it, right? It's about that hyper focus and it's about knowing what's going to be effective and looking at that. And it is not maintainable to be in the gym 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's not lifelong manageable and maintainable unless you work there.
Mhm.
But we just really have to look at why. Why do you not see it as perfection? If you've got a 6-pack, you don't need a 9-pack. Like what is that? What does that need to have? Where did that visual of a perfect stomach come from? Where did it come from? And why is it there? Why is that embedded and imprinted in your brain? And I do take a different approach, right? Because coaching is different. And one of the things that I teach is mental health, international mental health coaching credentials. So I bring in a lot of different mental health issues, eating disorders being one of the big ones, and knowing how to coach somebody that is living in that. And also knowing how to refer somebody to higher levels of care when they need that, right? Like somebody who's got 17% body mass, like needs to go to a higher level of care to gain some weight before they can actually do any true, you know, meaning because we have to have a certain body mass, right? Um, so it's about the esteem. Really, if you boil it down, let me make it like super simple. We gotta do some work on your internal self-esteem, that relationship with self, and we gotta remove all the noise from all of the external sources.
Noise from external sources. Um, that's gonna bring me over into this area I wanna ask you about social media and cell phones and apps. But before we do that, y'all, I just wanna point out that Trish and I agree on this. Traditional therapy and addiction models don't necessarily work for everybody. So this means I'm throwing a little bit of shade at, say, like the 12-step programs. They're not all bad, but I think they're cute if you don't have anything else, and they may totally work for you. The thing that pissed me off with the 12-step programs, especially like Crystal Meth Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, is at the end of the meetings, they ask if somebody has a burning desire. The burning desire is if you feel like you're pretty much in imminent danger of harming yourself or someone else. And then when somebody would say something, they just was, hey, I have this burning desire. I'm afraid I'm about to go XYZ. One guy was like in a field somewhere thinking about going to get the drugs. He hid under a bush or something, and all of them, they're just like, "Okay, thank you, keep coming back." And I told my sponsor at the time, I'm like, "What the fuck is the point of y'all sitting here and asking somebody if they have a burning desire, which is different than just sharing about what's been happening to you. You're asking somebody if they're in imminent danger to just let them get off the phone or out of the Zoom meeting with no advice." And that's the sort of stuff that would happen in some of those 12-step meetings. And so good on you if those work for you, but there's many there are many different ways to treat addiction and behavioral issues that you might be having. It's not just that. So I'm encouraging y'all, don't just stop at AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or this anonymous or that anonymous. Those are super spiritual programs. There are non-spiritual programs like what Trish is offering here. We've talked about spirit and God and stuff like that, or at least I have, but you don't have to be any of that in order to go somewhere and get a healing. Wherever you're at, you are good at just where you're at. So Trisha and I agree on this. We don't do like sobriety dates. We're not like, I've been sober since the 1st of January. And then, like she said, we don't do relapses. I might refer to a relapse as a relapse from time to time, but I don't believe in I agree. I think of it more of a slip. I had a moment and that's it. We're not gonna if I was sober for 5 years, 5 months, 5 days, and I have a slip, that doesn't mean that all of that sobriety time gets thrown down the trash. Like some schools of mind try to make you believe that it's fear-based. A fear-motivated recovery, and anything that's done from fear is not going to last, and it also is not healthy for you. I feel like it's the ultimate contradiction for these spiritual based programs to also be fear based programs when God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. They talk against themselves. And so I just want to let y'all know this is non traditional. Definitely go to her website, which is turningleavesrecovery.com, and see what she's working with, because I think this may work for you. She's totally different. You can hear the sincerity and the realness in her voice. She's walked down the alleys. She's kept pace with all the people you have too. She's not afraid of needles, tattoos, criminal records, whether you're queer or not, whether you're trans or not, no, honey, we don't look. When you've walked as close to death as she and I have, you understand how real, this life is and how much more real the next one is. And we don't have time to major over minor things, especially things that don't affect us. Like, you're not trying to hurt us by existing. And so therefore we welcome you as you are. Now, I'm gonna shut my cock holster up, and I want to shift gears over to to these apps. Look, the Lord has been trying to warn us against the destructive nature of technology since, I believe, the days of George Orwell, um, fucking Terminator. Okay, all of that is the Social Dilemma on Netflix, Megan, that movie about that crazy fucking doll, that just came out not too long ago. Then Spirit speaks to us through technology, through media, and he's trying to warn us. We don't have to wait for Arnold Schwarzenegger to come back as fucking Terminator, or for the little liquid guy, the T-1000 model or whatever, to come and try to fuck us up. The Terminator's already here, and they are iPhones and Androids and shit like that. They're already here. If you have an enemy, the best way to destroy them is from the inside out and make them destroy themselves. And so, as stated in The Social Dilemma, the only organizations in the world who refer to their customers as users are social media companies and drug dealers. Everybody else is a customer, a consumer, but the only users are people who are doing drugs or fucking around on their cell phones. What do you think about the technological downfall of mankind?
Well, here's what I think. I think that, again, we assign too much emotional purpose and weight to things outside of us in our lives, right? The closer that we eat to earth, the, the more connected we are with the land that we live on, whatever that might look like for you, right? Because even if you're in the concrete jungle, there's a central park somewhere, right? Like the more connected you are with the earth, the more you walk through your life in a space of integrity, right? Like you smile at your neighbors. So you approach life in the stance of a learner versus the stance of a judger, the better odds that you will be. Now, so the age of the cell phone is here, but I'll tell you, like it is crippling a lot of things down to the text messaging. Okay, so when you receive a text message, whose inflection or tone of voice do you hear? Your own. You assign how that's going to feel for you, and you choose how that's going to feel for you. And we never seek to get clarification. We don't use the power of inquiry enough. Like, oh, before I respond, because we're knee jerk impulsive beings, right? Because we're addicts or recovering, or, just people that aren't any longer, but know what it is if you don't identify as being in recovery, right? But, we're knee jerk impulsive beings. So we just say the first thing that comes out of our mouth. Like, I got this text message and I want to just say, fuck you. And instead of saying, oh, wait a minute, did you mean for that to come across so hurtful? Right. So it's removed our communication. Like we don't hear tone and inflection of voice anymore because we read everything. So it's left to our interpretation. Are we assigning something from our past? Are we in a state of negative self-esteem? Are we looking for external validation? Are we comparing ourselves to find worthiness? Are we, like, oh, I see, I can make myself look like the biggest coach on the planet using social media, right? Like I can hire all the photographers, the this, the that, the other thing, and make it look like I can buy followers. I can do this and that and make people think like, oh God, I want to be you. If you are coveting, you are coming at it from the wrong space, right? Like if you are coveting what somebody else is doing, what you perceive they have, um, you are coming at living from the wrong angle. You need to know what you want your life to look like, feel like, be like for you. We've got to learn how to live for ourselves first without feeling guilty, selfish, punished, or restricted. So when you're on social media, when you're reading the news, right? Like I have clients, I won't even let them look at the news because they get so externally derailed by it and become emotional basket case because they're incensed by the injustices in the world, which I get, but right, there's different kinds of distress, right? And we won't get into that because we don't have time. But if we let a stress that we cannot directly impact or change derail us, right? And change and manipulate the way our day is feeling, they get purposeless. It's just you making you crazy. So, if we're looking at, like, I could look at Jennifer Lopez, right? Like her and I share the same age. Um, and I could be like, holy heck, girlfriend's got, whatever. Wouldn't have anything remotely of the same life. We did not have the same upbringing. We probably don't have the same views, opinions, values. I don't know. We don't have the same lifestyle. Well, nothing is the same. So why would I think that I need to look like this? Right. So if you're going to use it in a nutshell, if you're going to use it effectively for yourself. I get into social media to share meaningful, purposeful, valuable information, right? I guess, if you will. But I also use it to connect with and engage with people that either fill my cup or that I can help fill theirs. Anything else is just noise. Getting in debates with people online does nothing, right? Like digging your heels in and trying to be right all the time doesn't serve you, right? Like trying to convince somebody that they're wrong. Like everybody has, we need to move into more acceptance of ourselves and the fact that every other being is their own unique individual being as well. And it's my motto is this. This is my life's motto. And because I live by it, I offer it to every single person on the planet. This is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however I want it to. I get to choose.
That's true power. Um, that's true power. Um, People with body image issues and self-esteem issues really need to stay the fuck off of social media because there's too many people all dolled up and photoshopped up and everything, and they look too they look too good in the sense that if you are already operating from a deficit of self-esteem and body image issues and all of that, and you have a detached you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you don't need to be looking at somebody who looks like they have everything like what the
Can
one
tell you what I do with that,
but
right? Because I mean, one, sure, great. If you can just put down social media and never look at it, that's fine. But let's not avoid the issue, the problem. And it's how you visually see it and what it does to you. So we need to change that. So we want to cognitively allow you to see a Photoshop photo and say, that person that created that is very talented in their Photoshopping ability, right? Like, let's give credit to the person that actually airbrushed this person to have a 19-inch waist. Like, that's pretty rad. I've tried to do Photoshop stuff, not on my body because I don't care about that, but I've tried to do some Photoshop stuff and that's hard. That's talent. That's a skill. So kudos. And then turn with, I feel, right? I feel a connection with that woman who doesn't feel good enough about herself to not be seen without Photoshop. Right. So now we can give grace and say a prayer and raise somebody up for not feeling good enough. Like, why isn't it okay that she shows up in her sweats with the same message? Why is that? Right. And so we have to separate ourselves from that and say, right. So it's a process, it's a time, but if we don't correct our inability to see and perceive things for what they are, like that's not that real person. Like very seldomly do I get online or on social media without makeup. But guess what? I very seldomly finish my shower without putting on makeup. Like it's just part of my routine. I don't even have to have a mirror, right? Like it goes on with my lotion. It's the exact same every day for the last, I don't know, 30 years. Oh, so it's not me trying to make myself up. Other people, right, go through most of their days without makeup and then put it on when they show up. Like I put it on when I go camping. It's just part of my, foundation is something that I wear. If I don't, I tend to break out, you know, but, so we have to learn how to see things, see through a different lens, one that serves us and hear through a different filter so that and I teach a filtrating boundary system that allows us to only let in that which will serve us, that which is for us, right? Like, whew, I'm glad I don't feel so poorly about myself that I need to Photoshop, right? Or, hmm, I got to work on why I'm looking at that person and wishing I was them.
and that transitions over well spoken, into men too, who are on social
Oh,
media, various places, who are not Photoshop, because there's a real problem with the guy who has what he considers to be a nice looking body, who feels the need to continually show it off. And, there's a deeper need there. And so for males with body image issues, you see the fitness guy on there, whoever, or the model who always has his shirt off, six pack or this or that. Honey, you don't know if he's going home and crying into his pillow at night. So just because you see these people who look like they're thriving, don't, 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 because you don't. There's too much lateral looking around and
Or nukes, right? Like it's across the board. And, again, s- be the best version of you. Love you for who you are. Unless you know somebody that you're looking at a picture of, you don't know them. And even the people that are in your sphere of circles, like, you don't know all of them. You know what they allow you to know about them.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eh,
definitely. And you can be, in a long-term relationship with somebody and never really know them. So you have to look up to God, first and most of all, because we look at humans way too much. You're never gonna do that because you weren't designed to worship humans. You need to look within, up and within, but all this looking around is nothing but a distraction.
yeah, it's just
Um
noise. So if it can't be entertainment for you, then you don't need it, right?
Entertainment in a good way, entertainment in a way that's not using somebody or something like that, growing from it or something like that. We're talking about positive entertainment, not negative, hurtful entertainment. Um, can you explain how people come to be held hostage by habits?
Mm.
And because I say it like this, I say options are the illusion of freedom. Some people are caught up on the having experiences, which is a huge word that gets tossed around. And people don't realize that they can be brought into bondage by things that make them feel good before they realize it.
Mhm. So, my favorite thing to talk about is why living without habits fixes everything. So let's just look at the definition of the word habit: impulsive action without a lot of thought. So when you are seeking to build a life filled with healthy habits, you're saying that I just want to go through life on autopilot, not thinking in a very regimented, rigid way, and I'm not connected with it at all. So because we've had a lot of focus on physical fitness, right, and body and connection with body, think about this. I can I can do this all day long with the weights in my hand. And I used to be a trainer, so I know, right? Like there's a whole different way. If you are connected, mind, body, spirit, and you're actually thinking about concentrating on the muscles, right? Like they're going to perform better for you. But if we're on autopilot, and again, I'm using this metaphorically, right? But I can get a workout vacuuming and moving a pot full of water, right? Because I can pick it up if I am present and I'm connected with me and what I'm doing, and I'm touching a metal handles on a big pot, and I'm carrying the big pot of water over to the stove. I can engage my core, I can use my biceps, and I can, make sure my shoulders are engaged so that, I'm using everything. So if we're habitually going through life, right? Like we're just free flowing, man. Like we don't even know. We don't even know what we're doing. So, but here's the flip side to that. We also fall apart and crumple. So I saw a lot of this in the pandemic. Somebody trying to get up and go do their workout routine after things opened up, but kids couldn't go back to school. They get up to go do their 6 a.m. spin class or whatever 6 a.m. workout, but couldn't go because their kids were sick and had to stay home from school or, whatever, or, the school shut down. So they didn't have that place to take the kids that allowed them to go to this exercise, whatever class. And their whole world would fall apart because they couldn't have that regimented, rigid, habitual thing that they did every day. Just like the cup of coffee. I can't pick it up and drink it. My morning is off, right? Is it the caffeine or is it the habit? It's both, right? Like, why can't we just say, you know what, 6 a.m. isn't working out for me today. I'm going to go at 6 p.m. and have that be okay, right? Like we need resilience, right? cognitive resilience, emotional resilience, and they're very different. Um, and we need the ability to be bendable, flexible, pliable in our life. So we're super hard and rigid. Habits are rigid any way you look at them. They have to happen a certain way. They have to happen at a certain time. Everything has to be just perfectly so. And right, like talk about OCD, asking to be OCD, right? Like it controls you. And it's a reliance on something outside of you. Again, I go back to that. I can't tell you enough how we've conditioned ourselves over all of the years of our life to rely on things outside of us. In the way we are designed, it was to move into an internal locus of control position where we rely on ourselves to figure out the problem. Where am I going to get food? Where am I going to get shelter? How am I going to avoid doing that drug today? How am I going to not rely on alcohol to calm this, whatever, what would serve me better in this time and space, etc. That all has to come from us, not from something out there. So we're habitually relying on, right? People, places, things outside of us to make us what we want, like that vision of perfection. So anyway, we could be addicted to the gym. We could be addicted to all the things, all of our habits. Habits are an addictive behavior.
Or, thank you, very well put. In hypnotherapy, 'cause I'm a licensed hypnotist as well, we refer to that as our, neurological pathways,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, that's a way of saying the shit's been wired into your head through repetitive thinking. It's like hard drugs for me, like cocaine and crystal meth and shit like that, have not truly been enjoyable since I got HIV, like, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It threw me the HIV threw me in such a depression. It changed my anatomy and the way my bodies respond to upper drugs. And although I knew I wasn't, I kept trying to see if I could enjoy them again. I kept trying to rework it. It was just like a pattern, but it was never going to work. I just learned it. And then I still associated that old joy with something that was no longer current. We do the same thing in abusive relationships. We get into a pattern. We get wired to texting them at a certain time, hearing from them at a certain time, going with them here, being with them there. And then we associate an old joy that is no longer current. And those neurological pathways must be burned up and replaced, because the
Redirected something, right?
something's gotta be done with them because it's old. You're trying to live in the present with a memory of something that's no longer real. And so it's a habit, it's a neurological pathway that's been wired into you that is no longer serving you, and it must be exercised out of you.
Yes.
So, I think let me see. So now in the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, we're gonna be doing a segment at the end of every show called Dad Jokes. Um it's something that I've learned along the way. I've picked them up and, if you take yourself so seriously that you can't appreciate a dad joke, then you definitely need to come get counseled by Trisha over here because life's too short to not be a little corny from time to time. But before I abruptly shift gears and go into dad jokes this time, I think I'd like you to, because usually I would do this a different way, but go ahead and I want you to speak a word of encouragement to people and let people know whatever it is that you want to say. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat your outro stuff now. So her website is turningleavesrecovery.com. She's on Facebook, YouTube, in LinkedIn, or Instagram actually, Pinterest, and all of this will go in the showy notes as it always does. Now, if you have any other social media, whatever you might be on that I know about, any other bodies of work you want people to hear about, go ahead and tell them that now. Give your
Well,
final.
I never was able to figure out that whole Pinterest thing. So you can, I don't even know. I tried. It didn't work out so well for me. Basically, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn are my really the only places I truly hang out. And primarily Facebook. I love to connect with people there, but just reaching out to me on my website, there's a button at the top right hand corner where anybody can book a complimentary, conversation. Just, like if you want to pick my brain, book some time. Easy peasy. I only have one phone number, and and if you don't want to do a booking and you want to send me a text message just to see if we can have a phone chat, totally fine also. It's all good.
Any words of encouragement about anything we've talked about today to anyone struggling with any type of addiction?
You know, my word of encouragement is this, and I want to empower everybody. And it's, just kind of going back to not midstream or when you were talking about, the differences and perhaps how I practice and how you think, right? And you brought in I've worked in every level of addiction treatment and I actually, sit on the California Association of Alcohol and Drug Educators Board as the acting president. And I believe that there is value in every level of addiction treatment. However, that doesn't mean that every level of addiction treatment is right for each individual. So what I want everybody to hear here, again, this is your life. So when you are looking to find that person to work with or to walk with you in your journey, don't just assume that, trauma therapy is what you need, right? Don't just assume that you need to go away to a 90-day treatment program. Have a conversation with somebody that you can trust that will give you a true, genuine opinion, not seated in the ability to earn money. And I'll tell you what, like I don't, and not everybody is that way, but you can ask me. I'll tell you because if you're not the right level of care or we're not a good fit for each other, I'm going to refer you anyway because my success rates and my stats are are good for that reason because I don't bring people in that I can't serve, that I can't help, that won't benefit from the work that I do, from my craft, right? And I don't try to be something that I'm not. So what we want to do is you want to, regardless of what you're choosing, if you're choosing to go to a 30-day treatment program, get on the phone, know, understand, like, trust, have full buy-in to the therapists, the counselors, the support staff, the methods and modalities and approach of the program. And I know most people are like, I'm totally trashed and on drugs. How would I know? I don't know. I did. I spent 2 months getting to know the treatment facility I went to before I went. And I was in and out like that. And then came home and started my own pathway. Right. Like I had full buy-in into the program. I knew who my counselor was going to be. And, I draw the nuts, I think. Right. But you get to choose. So don't, like, here's the deal. And I don't know, maybe you guys will appreciate this. Maybe you'll be offended. Hopefully you'll just appreciate this fun analogy, right? Like we don't want to send a yogi male to the dude ranch, right? Like, don't go thinking like the recovery ranch is going to be your thing because you're going to be digging shit. You're going to be cleaning stalls. If that ain't your jam, don't go there, right? Like, you gotta pick the program that speaks your language. If I am speaking Swahili to you today, please don't call me. If something that I've said resonates with you, and you want to poke around and, look a little bit deeper, great, do that. If that speaks to you, call me, right? Like find your person. Same thing, sponsors. Sponsors are sponsors. And I think this is very valid and worthy and highlighting because you mentioned this in the group. They do it backwards from what clinicians would. We would never end with a bomb, right? Like a vulnerable bomb and leave somebody open and wounded. They are not trained professionals, and even if they are in that space, they can legally not act as trained professionals. So if I showed up to an AA meeting, I can only go there as little old me with no credentials, right? Like can't show up and say like, hey, look, like this is who I am and this is what I do, right? Like I have to show up as just a person. And so, a sponsor is a sponsor. Their only purpose is to walk you through the 12 steps and to teach you the traditions. Right. So that's that program. If that program speaks to you and you feel it in your soul and you feel it in your gut and it's what you want, then do it. It serves a lot of people. For me, I wasn't going to sit in the same chair for the next 30 years telling my sob story. Like, I'll share my story with you if you want to hear it, but it isn't my life today. It's just how it got here. Right. So know that. Also know that there's a difference between coaching and therapy and counseling. Coaches are meant to take you from right where you are in this moment and help you figure out how to shift things and move forward. Right. Like, it is our job to work ourselves out of a job. So, my job is to take you from here to the outcome that you want, but to do it ethically, morally, and from a place of knowledge, not just because I was able to do it in my life. Right. So a lot of coaches out there, right? Like, they teach their methods too, right? Like, they're like, oh, look, I made this $1 million in my life. Come do it my way. Right. But they have no training, they have no anything. So how can they teach it to somebody who's completely different than them? So anyway, that's the empowerment they have for you, is to, if you are totally fine to find the one person that speaks your language, even if it's the guy that sits on the park bench that is homeless. If he speaks to you and he can give you words of wisdom that help you, great.
I mean, that's so true, and thank you so much for, for explaining it that way. Like you're saying that the guy on the park bench, when I was in the mental hospital a couple of weeks ago, I was going through all of my self-harm and everything, dealing with, life's issues related, to my ex. But when I was in there, this man who was in there because of a stroke, I was in there like 7, 8 days, and he kind of had like a dementia thing going on too. He would just be talking to himself, as such. And I was just sitting down coloring, which is about all you can do in the mental hospital besides watch TV, depends on the facility. But he just stopped. He walked up to me and he just kind of like reached out his hand and he was like, "Good people are coming your way." You know, I don't know if he knew fully what he said, because after he said it, that I said, "I think God just spoke to me through you." He said it kind of like how my evangelist, who I talk about in my book, which I sent you a free copy of.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
um, he spoke to me kind of like how she would have whenever she was going forth with a word of prophecy, because she was a highly clairvoyant woman, and I was like, and he was like, I think, a little bit confused or whatever after. But the person on the park bench, people who society discounts, spirit can step into those people and speak to you what you need to hear. So, let's slow down and listen to wherever God may be speaking to us. Just
Right.
help him come to you in the most unlikeliest of places.
For sure.
And okay, so thank you so much for that, and again, all your information on the show notes. So now let's have us some dad jokes before we get out of here. So dad jokes are meant to not be too funny. They're totally corny. Today's dad jokes are courtesy of menshealth.com. I always have three. I guess you can contribute if you want to. You are under absolutely no pressure to do so. I'm corny and all of those things, and I love it. And I love being this comfortable in my own skin. So number one, what do you call a line of men waiting to get haircuts?
Um, I have no idea.
A barbecue.
That's
Okay,
that's
but
but
what do you call a beehive that doesn't have an exit?
scary.
Unbelievable.
That's oh my.
Now, this one isn't more of a. Sometimes dad jokes aren't a question. It's kind of like reads like a statement like this. So, did you know that the first French fries weren't actually cooked in France? Can you guess where they were? Oh, I'll make it a question. Can you guess where they were cooked at?
No.
In Greece.
That
In Greece.
oh, geez, look, that was so obvious too. Oh my gosh, that was totally obvious. Wow, that was a good one. That was my favorite. That was the favorite of the three. I don't have any dad jokes. Um, Because actually, yeah, when you told me about it, I was thinking about, oh, how can I have a dad joke, right? Like, but I like your version of dad jokes better than my trauma-filled dad brain, right? Um,
All right, Trisha. Well, thank you for enduring my dad jokes today and for sharing your wealth of knowledge and information. And I know that has helped the world. We will talk to you next time. Thank you so much and have a fabulous weekend. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for taking some time to invest into yourself and into the lives of your loved ones. Please visit us at sexdrugsandjesus.com and check out our resource page, our spiritual service offerings, my blog, my books, and other writings that God has partnered with me to create. Find us on any social media platform. Stay strong, my people, and just remember that everything is going to be all right.